Alright, greetings everybody, welcome to my channel. In this video we're going to be making a wood countertop for a bathroom vanity. This is the old countertop we had decided to remove, and in doing so I ended up breaking it, which is a completely different story. But here it is nonetheless. We were faced with obviously what we want to replace it with, and I had a hard time dropping at least $1,000 on a new stone countertop. So instead I spent less than $100 to make a nice wood countertop just like this. This is the finished product. Looks gorgeous, so I'm going to show you how I did it step by step. A big concern with a wood countertop in a bathroom is obviously water penetration over time. Will it swell? Will it warp? Right? But my experience, I found that if you seal it really well, top and bottom, you're not going to have the issues that people are afraid of. This is our bathroom downstairs in our basement. It is a wood countertop, and it's about 6 years old, and I have no evidence of swelling, water absorption, anything like that. It looks pretty much, besides being a little dirty, not being wiped off, it's still pretty much looking brand new. So this is the master bathroom that we are going to be working with today in this video. I'm going to keep the actual vanity base cabinets. We're going to be painting them white. Obviously with the countertop removed, I'll be patching the wall, but I'm going to show you step by step how we get to the actual countertop piece. We'll be cutting it, measuring it, all that good stuff. So let me fast forward through the prep work a little bit. You can see I've got the walls patched up and the base cabinets painted. I've made separate videos on that if you want to search my channel. Also, how to rematch your texture. If you do have damaged drywall texture, how can you replicate that orange peel using a spray can? Search my channel for a video on those details if you are interested. But this is basically, long story short, the prep work before the countertop begins. We'll paint that up, and basically the idea here is to get all your prep work done so that you can just focus on the countertop and not have to do possibly damage your countertop with the prep work for your wall and the repairs and your painting and all that. You want to make sure that you have that taken care of before you put in your countertop. Now, relevant to the countertop making process is your sinks. So we're going to be installing 2 vessel sinks and your faucets. These are the faucets that I'm going to be installing to match the countertop. And I'll put links down below for all this stuff if you are interested in the description box below. This is the wood that we're dealing with. This is a hardwood. This is poplar. And I just went to the hardware store and picked up a really big sheet of poplar. It's about 6 feet in length and about 24 inches or 26 inches deep, something like that. So the first thing I'm going to do, you can see here the 6 foot actually leaves me a little bit of gap, and instead of going the next size up, which is like an 8 foot piece of wood, which basically doubles your cost, I'm going to be building some trim pieces to fill those gaps, and also putting a nice front trim piece on, because you can see it's about 3/4 of an inch thick. And so I just found at the hardware store as well a long piece of trim. It's a 1x2, and we're going to be mounting that to the front to give it a thicker appearance. And here are the little trim pieces that I'll be cutting down and making sure those fit nicely all the way flush and up against the wall. Now obviously you want to level everything. Because I'm using an existing base cabinet, I was really confident that everything was indeed already leveled. Of course, I had to scrape off the glue underneath that mounted the previous countertop to the base, but other than that, we were pretty level. Now, before we make any cuts, we want to kind of dry fit everything, so I'm going to take my vessel sink along with my faucet and just kind of ballpark, kind of see, just kind of get an idea of how far I want things to be from the wall or from each other or from the front. Now, this is not exact at all. We actually need to cut our wood first, but we're also going to be putting in this drain. So basically you need your faucet, your sink, and your drain, I think, before you start cutting and making your holes and your lines, your cuts for your wood countertop. So with the original piece of wood, piece of poplar here in place, I'm basically pushing that all the way against the wall, and I'm going to be drawing my cut line here. Just like that. I want it pretty much flush with that piece, the front of the countertop, or the front of the cabinets themselves. So that's what that line is for. And now I'm going to flip the piece over because I want the factory cut edge to be facing me, basically, in the front of the countertop. So bear with me here. I'm going to flip that over. And then you can see my cut line that I just drew with the pencil is going to be facing up. And so this is how I want it to be. I'm going to actually make the cut along the back of the piece. Because again, I want that factory cut, which is a perfectly straight cut, to be frontward facing. So with my circular saw, I will go ahead and get that cut right along that line, set it to the appropriate depth, and voila. Now, your walls are not going to be perfectly straight, keep in mind. Most walls aren't. They'll dip in a little bit. And I was okay with that. You certainly have the option of cutting exactly along that line, but I just cut pretty much in a straight line as long as the two ends lined up. You can see we're pretty flush there. And the trim piece that we're going to put, that sticks out just a little bit. And I'm okay with that because that trim piece is really going to hide any imperfect cut there, if that makes sense. So look at that factory edge cut facing forward with the trim piece. That's kind of how it's going to go. Make sure I have enough clearance for my drawers to open and close. And I'm pretty happy with that. Next, we're going to be measuring the little trim pieces for the side. And obviously the walls are not... Maybe not obviously, but it's possible that your walls are not straight here either. But you want to get a measurement of your gap. How deep is the gap? And also, we're going to be measuring how wide our front trim piece is. And a little handy tip here is to use a shower curtain to get that perfect length if your tape measure maybe is off a little bit, or you have a hard time pressing it all the way against the wall. So we'll go ahead and get that piece cut. Now I haven't mitered anything or beveled, or not beveled, but mitered the edges yet. I'm just getting the total length, you can see. So the length is perfect from wall to wall. And next I'll be drawing a simulated pencil cut just to kind of help me remember once I bring it down to my miter saw which direction I need to make that cut. So I'm going to cut both of those ends as shown. And it's not a 45 degree, you just have to adjust your miter saw to your pencil line, going from the edge of the table to the wall, just like that. Next, I'll make a mark to see the how long I need my side pieces to be. You can press pause and click rewind if you'd like to, see what I did there exactly. But I'm basically measuring the length and then the width. So I'm going to press that up against the wall and make a little pencil line. That's basically how wide I need my cut to be. Look at the orientation of the 1x2. I do need it to be the same thickness of the countertop. So I only have to make one cut. Okay, so that trim piece and the countertop are both exactly the same height, so to speak, which is 3/4 of an inch, something like that. So I'm going to verify that cut line, oops, it looks like I'm a little off. So I need to move that line in just a little bit more. And that should be pretty much perfect. I'll go ahead and make a pencil line on there. And we're going to be using a table saw to cut this piece. Here's another view. So we'll get that aligned appropriately on the table saw. Now it's a really thin cut, so be extremely careful with that. And there we go. Obviously you didn't see the saw turn on there, but that's what I did. And we've got pretty much the perfect width. Now it does sink down to the bottom, so I'll have to brace that up. And I'll do that in a second. But for now I'm just making sure I have the appropriate width that I'm happy with. Push that all the way back to the wall. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, any imperfect gap that you see, I can fill that in with caulking. Next, we're going to take care of that edge. Now, unfortunately, it's not a perfect 45 degree because we're dealing with different widths or thicknesses of the wood here. So what I'm going to do is basically pencil line that to make sure that the line goes from that corner to the outermost edge and that it's going to meet pretty well. And I used a jigsaw to do that and then sanded that down. Unfortunately, I didn't have the professional tools to get that angle of a cut. My miter saw did not do that type of angle, so that was kind of frustrating, but What can I say? I'm not a pro, right? I'm just a do-it-yourselfer. So next up, I'm going to put a little brace on there with some glue, and then put a screw through there to make sure that those trim pieces are braced up. Now, as far as finish goes, I'll put a link down below for this stuff that I am using. I tested it quite a bit first to see how many coats I want, and do I sand or do I not, and do I like the color? We know we wanted kind of a warm color. And this stuff is just beautiful, absolutely perfect. I'm going to review this in a separate video, so be sure to search my channel for that review if you are interested in more detail what that is and how it works and what it looks like and all that good stuff. Okay, so again, we've got our trim pieces cut and in place. Dry fit, of course. Nothing is permanently secured or installed yet because we do need to seal this up. This is bare natural wood, and if you put water in there or on it, it's just going to drink it up, and this is where the problem lies with having a wood countertop in a bathroom. Generally a big no-no, right? But we're going to break the rules a little bit. There's that unfortunate miter cut end, and I could probably do that again, but you know what? I'm going to fill that with some patch or some wood putty, and I think that difference is going to be pretty much unnoticeable. That cut I'm really happy with. Anyway, let's continue. So we've got things kind of dry fit in there. The trim pieces are braced up so they're not going to fall, because my wall from wall to wall is like 73 inches, right? So about a ½ inch on each side. All right, we're going to get our sinks just put where we want them to be exactly. We're not, installing them obviously yet, but we need to figure out where we need our drain hole to be and our faucet hole. And we decided we're gonna put the faucets right there on center and about 3 inches from the edge or so, and on center with the drain, or not the drain, but the center of the cabinet doors. We thought that's gonna look really nice ultimately. So we'll go ahead and get those pencil marks on. You can see that is the exact location that we want our drain hole to be, and we can build out from there, but it needs to be at least that wide, that diameter of the circle. And more accurately is this thing, because you can see there's no cover plate that we're going to be installing, so that cut has to be perfect. I don't have a lot of forgiveness if I make that cut inaccurately or whatnot, unlike the drain hole, which I'll show you in a minute how I do that. So the position of the faucet, they're a little top heavy, so I had to be really careful they don't kind of tip over. And I've got the ultra long neck one. They make a smaller one, but I needed the height to kind of go over the edge of the vessel sink like that. And that right there, that pencil line is going to be pretty much the exact cut. I'm going to go inward of that a little bit. That's the outer perimeter of my cut. So I basically have all 4 holes marked. And for the faucet, you can see I did my pencil line around the outer perimeter, but I need to make that the minimum diameter and then add about about an 1/8 of an inch or so. So I just happened to find a little tube in the garage, little canister that pretty much had that exact diameter, and I verified that with my tape measure as per the instructions for the faucet. They give you a minimum and maximum hole. If you go outside that maximum diameter, you're kind of screwed, because it'll be noticeable once you put your faucet down on top of your countertop, right? So you got to have that, measure 10 times and cut once. Now, as far as cutting, this is one of the first times I've been working with hardwood like this. Talking about a pretty good sized diameter hole in a really hard wood. I've worked with pine before, and a drill bit like this blows through it, but I actually had kind of a hard time with this particular drill bit. Lots of vibration. It ended up not working as well as I wanted it to. Created a lot of heat. Anyway, so I upgraded to this thing right here, and that worked a little bit better, a lot better actually. Make sure you blow the dust off a little bit. And a good 30 seconds or so gently rocking it back and forth should penetrate that hole pretty easily. There we go. So that is the hole for the faucet. And I widened it out just a little bit using a drill bit that had kind of a lateral bite to it. You can see there. Allows me to kind of put sideways pressure on it and widen it up just a hair. Now, as far as the drain hole goes, I'll teach you a little trick here, or share with you a little tip. You could grab a huge drill bit, but I basically was maxed out at about 2 inches. I don't think I had, maybe that was a 2.5, which is fine, but there's no rule that says it has to be a circle. There's also no rule that has to say it has to be that exact same size that we marked, right? In other words, why can't we make it a square, and why can't we make it bigger? The vessel sink is going to sit right on top of there, right? So you could certainly use your jigsaw. Also challenging with a hard wood like this. So I busted out this multi-tool, which I absolutely love. I've used it for other projects around the house. Very versatile. And it made pretty much a perfect square with minimal effort. So if you have one of these, definitely recommend that. And the size-wise, you can see I definitely went outside the hole, the perimeter, the diameter of the circle that I drew earlier, because I wanted to have a little bit more play if I needed to make some small adjustments. You can certainly make it wider or bigger if you'd like. Again, as long as your vessel sink covers that hole, you're not going to have much to worry about. So that takes some of the pressure off of that particular cut. Next, I am going to sand down the edges just to make sure there aren't any jagged pieces from the cuts left. And this is the finished side, and I'll go ahead and make my, by the way, use a pencil, not a marker, so you can erase your pencil marks. And we're going to make sure that the faucet, before we lug it upstairs and seal it all up, or seal it and then lug it upstairs, we're going to make sure that that faucet hole is indeed the correct size, that our supply lines can get up in there and everything works well. And we're just dry fitting the included supply lines as the instructions say, and you can see here we've got no problem. Everything fits really well. So I'm happy with that. Now we're going to move on to the sealing process. I mentioned I'm using this stuff. It's some type of fancy oil. It got great reviews online, and I was I'd never used it before, so a little, okay, what's this stuff all about and how do you use it? And basically, I'll be reviewing it in another video. I believe I mentioned that earlier. But I ended up just putting about 4 coats on total, sanding down very lightly between each coat and letting it dry for 12 to 24 hours between coats as per the manufacturer's instructions. And you can see what it's doing to this piece of poplar. It's making that grain pop. Look at that. I found this stuff absolutely beautiful. So long story short, I've got 4 coats on the front and the bottom underside, and all of the holes are also sealed completely and cured for 48 hours after my last coat to make sure it's nice and hard and durable. So there is no way that any water is coming close to getting into this and creating water-related issues. I also sealed up those trim pieces, the front and the sides completely. So I am 99% confident that this piece of wood will not be penetrating any type of steam from the shower or spilled water or anything like that. I am very happy with that. There's a look at kind of the finished countertop when it's all said and done in terms of sealing. These pieces, as I mentioned, are also sealed up. So next we're going to go ahead and we're going to be installing these pieces permanently. So I have some silicone. It's like the special adhesive. It's not just regular silicone. It has apparently a better adhesive quality to it. Again, I'll put a link down below if you are interested. I think you can probably use regular 100% silicone as well. And I'm applying liberally to all of the perimeters of the base cabinet. In the back, the sides, and in the middle too. And I will be pressing that down firmly, but I don't need to get my trim pieces in first, so I'll be applying a bead of trim glue, or a bead of glue on the trim as shown, and then I'll press that against it and then kind of push it down, and I'll use some shims too to make sure that doesn't pop up as the glue dries, because it's now slipperier, so there's less friction, so the wood piece is able to move up and down on its own, even a little bit, not its own, but it created kind of a squeezing effect as I pushed that. You can see it kind of pops up there a little bit on its own, so it wasn't doing that in my dry fit. So I just took some shims and put those along. But first I'm going to glue this piece, put some glue on that. And I am using a little brad nail gun for my air compressor. And I put about 8 very, very fine tip brad nails in there. You can't even see them. There's my shim. And we'll let everything dry for a good 24 hours at least. And there it is. Look at that. Not bad, huh? That grain really pops. It's waterproof, durable, so it actually creates some strength in the wood itself because of the dried coat. And it looks thicker. Now, as far as finishing touches go, I'm going to take some silicone and lightly apply some to the edges there to make sure that no water spills over. So we'll do that on the back and the sides, again creating a watertight surface area. Now, as far as the installation goes, you can see here we've got our faucet going in through the hole. I will show you in another video how you can install the faucets and the sink step by step, so be sure to search my channel, in addition to how to install these drains here. So long story short, we'll go ahead and finish up the installation, and that is all there is to it. We'll go ahead and stop the video there. We've got a wood countertop for a bathroom vanity for $100 or so total. Sure beats $1,000 to $1,500, right?